Few people in the wrestling world have been able to draw the shock, horror, and reverence the way Mick Foley has. A hardcore legend who put butts in seats, we are dedicating to this episode of Wrestle History to the personas, matches, and legacy of Mrs. Foley's baby boy. Mick Foley was born in Bloomington, Indiana, and moved to Long Island, New York, where he attended Ward Melville High School, a place that looks like you mumble a brick in the wall while shuffling through the halls. Seriously, guys, look it up. Foley was involved in a lot of sports. Football sports, basketball sports, lacrosse sports, running sports, and wrestling. Look, the guy seems to have a love for competition and a taste for the outlandish. And as much as Foley loved wrestling, he also enjoyed watching it. So much so that he developed a character to wrestle his buddies in homemade staged movie matches. So, here's a question. If you know Mick Foley, who came first? Cactus Jack, Mankind, or Dude Love? Well, Foley created a character. A character that was everything he thought a guy should be. A wrestling hotshot who was a smooth talker with the ladies. In the homemade movie called The Legend of Frank Foley, Dude Love was born. And in one of these homemade movies, Foley did something I would call stupid. Inspired by his wrestling idol, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, whom he saw climb atop a steel cage and perform a body splash after hitchhiking to a Madison Square Garden, climbed on top of his friend's garage and jumped 16 feet onto a mattress sitting on unsecured boxes. Twice. And he didn't even do it for the vine. The movie eventually made its way to recruiters, and Foley started training at Dominic DeNucci's wrestling school in 1983, under the condition that Foley would stay in college. Remember, kids, have dreams, but also education. And it was tough. Foley would leave his college at the end of the week, drive 5 hours to the wrestling school, and then sleep in his car until it opened. But Foley's drive wouldn't allow him to quit. He appeared on DeNucci's cards and also took part in squash matches as a jobber for WWF tapings like Primetime Wrestling and Superstars of Wrestling. After wrestling school and graduating college, Foley signed to the Continental Wrestling Association as Cactus Jack, an ominous character with a mean streak a mile wide and a taste for blood. After wrestling in CWA and World Class Championship Wrestling, WCCW, Foley signed on to WCW. Remember that, listeners. WCW. He had a brief stint there and came back and had a feud with the Icon Sting that culminated in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Now, Cactus Jack was a Foley-made character, but in his first run in WCW, Jack wasn't the walking monster madhouse just yet. The loud, cuckoo bananas, demented wacko of Truth or Consequences, New Mexico was the brainchild of both Mick and Colette Foley. Colette being Mick's wife. And you know what? Cactus Jack became a crowd favorite when Foley got back to WCW. And he began a feud with Vader. Now, Vader was known for being a stiff worker, but Foley wanted to work with him anyway, and they had matches where Foley won and matches where he got injured. And two matches between these guys stand out. The first is the Texas Death Match at Halloween Havoc in 1993. That was so gruesome, so bloody. WCW never booked these two for a pay-per-view match ever again. But that didn't stop them from booking a match during the European tour in 1994 at Munich. During this match, Foley was going for a hangman, but the ropes had been drawn so tight that he couldn't really move out of it. But when he did get out of it, his ear was split pretty badly down the back. And once both he and Vader were back in the ring, The two exchanged blows until, and this is where things get a little confusing, because some sources say that after the two exchanged blows for a little while, Foley's ear just came off. Others say that Vader grabbed Foley's ear and then ripped that sucker off. No matter who ripped the ear off or if the ear fell off by itself, the fact is that Mick Foley's ear came off in the middle of a match. Was that a good reason to stop the match? Yeah. Did the match stop? No. Foley ended up leaving WCW sometime later due to growing frustration with Eric Bischoff. Remember that name, guys. Eric Bischoff. He spent time on the independent circuit, bagging bodies and taking titles, before landing on ECW, where he got whacked by the Sandman with a kendo stick 46 times. The ECW was a hardcore kind of place, so Foley felt right at home. But the magic began to wear off after a while. Foley felt that the crowds were demanding too much of the wrestlers and became indifferent to them after a botched dive from JT Smith that led to Smith hitting the concrete floor so badly that his head began to swell instantly. And the crowd was just taunting Smith about it. Foley left the promotion in 1996. That same year, though, Foley signed to the WWF as Mankind, the boiler room squatting loner who talked to a rat named George. Mankind and The Undertaker feuded, leading to a boiler room brawl and the first ever Buried Alive match, which became an iconic staple for a really long time. He also broke up the relationship between The Undertaker and Paul Bearer, the funeral homewrecker. After Paul Bearer took a leave of absence, Foley resurrected an old character to team up with Stone Cold Steve Austin, the wildest cat in the business, a real ladies' man. That's right, friends and enemies, Dude Love was back. And Dude started a feud with Triple H. And this was back in the days when they tried to convince us that Triple H's name was Hunter Hearst Helmsley. It's Paul. His real name is Paul. The feud led to a Falls Count Anywhere match, but that just wasn't Dude's bag. And as much as Mankind wanted to grab H by his hair and drag him across a hotbed of barbed wire or something like that, the two personas thought of someone that wanted to do more than watch Triple H suffer. If you're thinking what I'm thinking, and I know you're thinking what I'm thinking, that person was none other than Cactus Jack. That's right. Despite Vince McMahon hating the character, Cactus Jack came into the match trash can first and express delivered a pile driver to Triple H through a table. So far, we've seen the three faces of Mrs. Foley's baby boy: Cactus Jack, Dude Love, and Mankind. Which means we get to briefly talk about the Royal Rumble of 1998. Because Foley wasn't in there just once, not just twice, but a whopping 3 times, as Mankind, Dude Love, and Cactus Jack. And as far as I know, he's the only person who has ever been in a Rumble 3 times. He also participated in WWF's first hardcore match with Terry Funk to determine who would go up against Stone Cold Steve Austin at Over the Edge. This was also where he was fired. Well, Dude was fired. Mankind, on the other hand, was not, and resumed his feud with The Undertaker, and that match led to the third ever Hell in the Cell match, which, guys, we've got to talk about. So, let me set the scene for you. It's 1998, King of the Ring, and Taker's got a messed up foot. Some sources say it was broken, some say it was fractured. But is that gonna stop the Phenom? No. Foley, going into this match, was wanting something that could live up to the Hell in the Cell match between Taker and HBK. Mankind's theme plays, and he walks down the ramp, up to the steel cage, and climbs to the top of it with a chair. Soon, the spine-tingling, inducing toll of the bell that tolls for thee, dear listeners, drones, and the Undertaker saunters out. And soon, he joins Mankind at the top of the cell, The two exchange blows, feet sinking into the mesh, wires popping from the pressure of the weight of these two walking monoliths, provided undercurrent of ominous music. After delivering a couple of choice chair shots to The Undertaker, the age-old question of can Foley fly was answered. You see, Mick Foley was hurled off the top of the 16-foot cage and crashed onto the announcer's table below. This was one of what I think are 3 highlights of the match. And as much as I would love to show you guys clips of what I think were 3 big highlights, I can't. Copyright. But I can show you clips of me reacting to this. So let's go to that. So they're on top of the cage right now, and you can see the wires popping off. Oh, chair shot. Oh my God, you can hear the wires popping. No. Oh, Jesus. So if you watch this match and you see him go off the top of that 16-foot cage, I've seen clips of this a million times, and I still just tense up because it's a moment. And when he lands on the announcer table, it's the crowd standing up and screaming, and some are cheering, and then you have JR in the background just screaming, "My God, they've killed him." And the iconic line, "As God is my witness, he's broken in half." This is one of the reasons why I kind of get a little mad when people say that wrestling is fake. Yeah, wrestling is scripted, but getting tossed off a 16-foot steel cage, that is not fake. And there are ways to take bumps and ways to execute moves to ensure the minimal amount of damage, but you still get hurt in this. There's a reason why pro wrestlers do have to be out for injury. Undertaker's done some interviews, in the video that I'm gonna link in the resources, but he said that it was just kind of an out-of-body experience. And you can, I don't know, but when they zoom in on Taker, he's just there. He looks so dazed and out of it, and then you've got the people coming down, Terry Funk and everybody. Oh my gosh, and he's getting back up. They're halfway up the ramp. He is getting back up, and oh my God. Oh, Terry Funk, stop him. Oh man. And he climbs back up to the top. I think at this moment, there's no Mankind, any kind of persona. There's just Mick Foley. We're gonna move on to the second part of this match that the choke slam. Oh, here it comes. Oh gosh. Jeez. Oh. So the choke slam on top of the steel cage was actually a botch that went as good as it possibly could. The way that Undertaker does his choke slams is he'll do it 2 ways. He'll pick you up, and when he goes to slam, he'll bend over and bring you down. Or he'll pick you up and he'll follow through, landing on his knees. Which, Undertaker's a big dude. It's gonna hurt regardless. And it requires being in close proximity to the person that you are choke slamming. Now, if you watch this, you'll see that Taker did the choke slam from the railing instead of the actual mesh. So that's actually really great that he did that, and that he didn't follow through the way that he normally did. Because, if you watch this match, you'll see the 2 guys, if Taker had followed through with the choke slam the way that he normally did, they both would have gone through the mesh. Foley most likely would have landed a little differently, but he also would have landed with Taker's weight on top of him, and that would have been either career-ending or life-ending. So this is a botch that turned out the best way that it possibly could. But still, just painful. This isn't like the third thing, but this is still focusing on the choke slam through the cage. If you look at the pictures after the choke slam, you'll see that Foley has something in his mustache. Kind of looks like a really big booger. that is actually one of his teeth. And then here comes the third bit. I don't like this. You know how you see something bad, or you know something bad is gonna happen, but every time you see it, it just, gosh. Can I just say, I've never liked the use of thumbtacks in matches at all. I've never been a fan of thumbtacks, even with like all of the stuff I watch, you know, at the tail end of the Attitude Era. And I know there's like a really, not good, but the best way that you can land on thumbtacks is on your back. I think I've heard that before, because then you'll be able to just spread everything out, but it's still on your back. No. Afterward, Foley developed Mankind into a more comedic personality who tried to befriend Vince McMahon. And thus, listeners, Mr. Sacco was born and would make regular appearances when the mandible claw was in use. Eventually, the Hardcore Championship was created and awarded to Foley, but McMahon was manipulating things behind the scenes, and in a match against The Rock, ordered the timekeeper to ring the bell while Foley was in a sharpshooter, but didn't tap out. I don't know if y'all are familiar with an event in pro wrestling known as the Montreal Screwjob, but this is very reminiscent of it. It stank of it, especially since it had only happened the year before. Like, seriously, guys, you need to go look up the Montreal Screwjob. Mankind turned face and The Rock went heel, and this led to one of the biggest shoot yourself in the foot moments in pro wrestling history, maybe even like TV history. WWF taped their shows and broadcasted them at a later date, which is understandable. And the Foley versus Rock match that led to the title change was no exception. What was unusual was that stuff like this usually went to a pay-per-view, but WWF was involved in a ratings war with a popular rival promotion. Can you guess? Can you guess the three letters that go to this, listeners? WCW. You guys remember WCW? Good. Do you remember Eric Bischoff? Even better. You see, Eric Bischoff wanted to take advantage of the fact that WWF taped their shows while WCW operated on a live-only basis, and the fact that he knew the outcome of the Mankind vs. Rock match. So, here we go. He had a commentator reveal the ending of the match live in front of viewers, God, and everyone else. And then the commentator sarcastically added, "That'll put butts in seats." Oh boy, did it. Instead of watching the famous finger poke of doom, look it up, delivered by Hulk Hogan to Kevin Big Daddy Cool Diesel Nash, and the reformation of the NWA that nobody wanted, viewers switched over to watch Mankind win the Hardcore Championship. And guys, WCW never beat the WWF/WWE in their ratings war ever again. Talk about a big oof. Not that others aren't trying. And then there was the I Quit match. The match that cemented Rock as a heel. So here are some things I learned about the match from reading Foley is Good, written by Mick Foley himself, and available for checkout, kind of, at the Central Arkansas Library System. I say kind of because I'm currently hoarding a copy. Foley came up with the idea. He came up with the chair shots, kind of. They kind of got a little out of hand. The blackout that happened after Foley fell into the lighting equipment and the sparks that ensued were planned. His kids in the audience watching? Not at first. His jaw dislocating after a clothesline? I'm guessing not. Foley saying "I quit, but not really"? To quote the Kool-Aid Man, oh yeah. You see, the last chair shot knocked, and I'm using air quotes here, Foley out. While Mankind was laying still, Shane O'Mac played a recording of Mankind saying "I quit," but this came from an earlier promo that he'd cut. Sometime later, Mankind came back, and The Rock had a rematch with him in an empty arena match where the two actively tried to get each other a lengthy eulogy. In the end, though, they became besties and formed the Rock and Sock Connection, a 3-time tag team champion winning tag team. Anyway, in August of 99, Foley returned from a 3-month injury hiatus to restart his feud with Triple H. After going through a series of matches that included a couple of boiler room brawls, Foley felt the need to retire, which was understandable since he almost ended up as a face on a t-shirt in almost every match he fought. His last match was at Wrestlemania of 2000. This began his career as a storyline commissioner who served corny jokes and went for cheap pops, followed by a thumbs up. He made sporadic appearances as a guest ref until leaving the company in 2001. Do you remember when I said that match at WrestleMania was his last match? Nah, because Foley came back to the ring after a stunt in Ring of Honor to take on Randy Orton in a hardcore match in 2004, where Orton won. Foley continued to wrestle, commentate, and make sporadic appearances on the now WWE until leaving the company in 2008 for a well-earned retirement. I'm just kidding. He went to TNA. By 2009, he was the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, which he lost to Kurt Angle at King of the Mountain at Slammiversary. And then he became paranoid about Hulk Hogan's impending arrival, thinking that the Hulkster would take over TNA, which, I mean, he wasn't wrong. There was also some drama with the new executive, Eric Bischoff. Remember Eric Bischoff? Man, you know, listeners, the world is a small place, but I swear the wrestling world is smaller. Foley ended up kayfabe leaving the company, came back in 2010, leading EV 2.0 with Rob Van Dam. And the Clique, no, not that Clique, got their own pay-per-view dedicated to hardcore wrestling. Foley ended up leaving TNA in 2011, citing frustration with the company. But he went back to the WWE, fully participated in the 2012 Royal Rumble, this time just once. And this was his last match as an active wrestler. In 2013, he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. He did have a couple positions as managers from 2016 to 2017, and in 2018, he introduced the 24/7 Championship, which is currently being held by Reggie, and was held the most times, and I think made famous by R-Truth, who's held it a total of 52 times. But, y'all, Foley isn't just a Hall of Famer pro wrestling legend. He has a pretty sweet writing career, and is a New York Times best-selling author for his autobiographies, 3 of which we have here at the Central Arkansas Library System, and all of which are checked out by me. He's also made appearances in TV and film, and if you're a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, you might have heard him as everyone's favorite third-person speaking earthbender, the Boulder. Listeners, I don't know how to end this episode. Like, how do you wrap up someone who was so dedicated to the sport, the showmanship of pro wrestling, that he put his body through some of the most brutal stuff and would still get up and take more bumps? I don't know. All I can say is that Foley is a legend who defined an era within the pro wrestling world. He's the jukebox hero of pro wrestling, if the jukebox hero was getting speared through flaming tables and tangled in barbed wire. And yes, he's still alive. Folks, that's all I have for this episode of Wrestle History. If you have a wrestler match or moment you'd like talked about, let us know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a nice day.